All right, I'd like to call to order the new Palestine Redevelopment Commission at 6:03 on August 3rd, 2022.
5:03.
5:03, excuse me. Just the glasses.
Okay.
We'll start off with a roll call. If we can have roll call, please.
Steve Rainey.
Present.
Rachel Strong.
Present.
Mark Looney.
Present.
Russell Smathers.
Present.
Tony Meyer.
Present.
Lisa Lanford.
All right, so old business. Look to approve the minutes from July 20th, 2022. Has all the council members been able to have time to read the minutes? Any comments, changes, or adjustments?
I make a move that we accept the minutes from the meeting.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Against, state nay. All right, motion carries. Thank you. Other old business that we have is the declaration resolution establishing an application area in economic development plan. I think we have representatives from Development Corporation.
Yes, my name is Brian Bosman with the law firm of Kroger, Dardis, and Regas, serving as the town's bond counsel on this matter. I'll give an introduction and kind of walk you through the process real quickly, answer any questions, and then the developer does have representatives here to give you details of the project.
Okay.
So the proposal that's before you this evening is to adopt a declaratory resolution, which is the first step in the process of issuing tax increment finance bonds that are paid for from the development that you're supporting. So just to walk you through the process, after a declaratory resolution is adopted by the Redevelopment Commission, notice is posted and published and distributed to all underlying tax districts and all departments of the city having to, or the town having to do with development, that there will be a public hearing, and that's currently scheduled for the 17th of August, to adopt a confirmatory resolution and to make specific, confirm the findings that are in the reports that you've received. That declaratory resolution has to be reviewed by the Plan Commission, which is scheduled right after this meeting, to confirm that the proposal conforms with the town's plans for development. And then that order of the Plan Commission is then reviewed by the town council, and that too is then confirmed, getting the first step of the project, process going. On the 17th, there will be 3 meetings also. First, the Economic Development Commission, which actually will recommend to the council the issuance of tax increment finance bonds in the amount of $5 million to support the $61 million project that the developer will explain here in a moment. And then the Redevelopment Commission will hold its confirmatory hearing, and there'll be a few other items that will be adopted that night. There'll be a pledge resolution and agreement, which will pledge 75% of the tax increment generated by the project toward the bonds. The Redevelopment Commission will be retaining the additional, the remaining 25% of the tax increment. All of that will go to the council with the hope that the council will approve the issuance of the bonds and issue the bonds in the amount of $5 million to support the developer's project. With that, I should identify that there's been some back and forth as to how many acres are involved in this. The actual allocation area, that's the area where tax increment will be collected, is part of your existing economic development allocation area already, but we're segregating that so that funds from that project can be deposited specifically for that project to support the bonds. The total on that is 31.3 acres. There's some reference to 25 acres. It's because we're including the retention pond that's adjacent to it in it as well. So it's 31.3 acres total. There are illustrations of that in the materials you've received, but I have some others in case you'd like to see that. So with that, happy to answer questions. I would recommend, Mr. Chair, that the developer let you know exactly what they're going to do and how the town can assist them.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Brian.
brought some pretty pictures for everybody to look at. I'm Travis Tucker, and I'm Tim Russell. We represent the Bacovic Management Group in the development of the project. You may have seen some of these pictures, but I'll use that for you here. Travis, you want to use this?
I was gonna think the same thing, good, yeah.
Yeah, I brought you this too.
Thank you, guys.
But we're here to make a presentation and answer any questions that you guys may have about the contemplated project. Tim has some of the specifics of the units, the unit mix, and the overall development.
So as Brian said, this is a $61 million development. It's made up of 16 two-story buildings that you'll see in the center area and to the back of the site. Then there are 7 duplex buildings that look like residential homes, custom homes here around the perimeter. And the pond, the current pond is right here. The clubhouse would be right here with a swimming pool and some other amenities. There's a walking trail around the complete site. There's also a regional lift station that will be put in for the city's use and dedicated back to the city. Probably up in this area. We haven't really got the design done yet for where it's going to be exactly, but it'll be in there. The mix is there's 102 one-bedroom units, and they're primarily in these two-story buildings. There's 148 two-bedroom units, which include 2-bedroom units in these plus these larger buildings. And then there's 16 3-bedroom units.
So for orientation, this is kind of facing south. The hospital's property is here. This is 600. On the other side of the pond, 52. We purposefully designed these to be, they're expensive to build because they're smaller and use some efficiencies and footprints, but we wanted the view to still look very much like residential and not bigger buildings. So these are villa type duplex.
We looked at 3-story back here, but we brought it all back down to 2-story to make it fuller. They're high-end market rent apartments with solid surface or quartz type tops, custom cabinets, vinyl plank flooring throughout. They're really nice units.
And then when this was all put together as part of a PUD, and it was very descriptive on the architectural standards, very high-end architectural standards, so we've complied to those architectural standards that you prescribed and what you want built there for the community. Also, the Bacovic team is here. Mohammed and his partner Gillian is here, so runs the asset management for the team. So we also have information about Bacovic companies if you want to know anything about their history or any other projects that they've been working on. We can pass those out.
And while those are being passed out, can I ask, what is your target rent? And what'll be the low end, what'll be the high end?
Oh, perfect number.
Thank you.
Depending on the number of, Gillian, do you want to, maybe she can give more specifics on our target rents.
Yeah, so right now we're renting close to about $2 a square foot in most of our A and AA portfolio units. We would expect to be probably a little bit under that in this area, but pretty quick rent trends stay where they are.
So what does that mean monthly rent wise? What would be the lowest rent and what would be the
What is our
highest rent?
smallest one bedroom? They're at 7.
7.
Yeah, you could go anywhere from about 1,200, probably all up to over 2,000 a month for the 3 bedrooms.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The extra units would be cement siding, brick, and some stone. And a lot of these units, buildings have garages underneath them. All of the duplexes have garages, and several of the buildings in the perimeter here have inside garage parking.
You may not have been asked, what about the roof
The roof
material?
is a shingle.
Shingle, okay. That answers that.
So total project cost is 61 million,
Yes,
and you're asking for 5 million from the town.
yes.
Any reason why you're asking for the 5 months? I mean, if you're spending 60, if it's total 61, 5 million's not really a lot.
Well, it's part of a math equation backed into what the increment component was created off of this. There was identified, part of that 5 million is the regional lift station that wouldn't have been part of our budget. There's some of the architectural standards that were called out that really represent the type of product that the town of New Pal wants and also that we want to own. So we're trying to create the quality of product that we want to own, and we want to be part of New Pal, and that's why we're asking for that.
Okay, fair enough.
Travis, the regional lift station, is that about $1 million
Yes.
item?
Yes.
And the reason that you're doing a regional lift station instead of only what's site-specific, that's for what reason?
Well, the site sits lower, so there's ways that you'd have, and Tim can speak to this more specifically, but well, why don't you go ahead and do that?
So there was a small lift station right here that served our site because the site's low. We had to get the elevations to get the sewage out. The town has come back and asked us to do more of a regional lift station to serve more of this area out here because of that issue. So that's why
It's above and beyond what the scope to support our project.
we don't need the.
But it
regional
makes
lift
sense in planning to,
Rather than having a bunch of little ones, having a bigger one to serve a bigger
yeah,
area.
and then in order for us to not require any lift station, we'd have to elevate the entire site by 2
It was a lot,
It was
yeah.
a lot, and so,
And you'd still have issues in your other parts of your town that regional lift station will serve.
sure. Also, there's some numbers that we want to address. The project will create jobs. It will create permanent jobs that the COVID team will hire. They expect that to be about 10 permanent jobs with an annual payroll of about $470,000. And then it will create several temporary jobs with construction. We kind of boiled that down to creating what it would look like as more a blended kind of deal with individuals. So it's 37 full-time equivalent temporary construction jobs with an estimated annual payroll of $2.75 million during the construction project.
Estimated time, start to finish.
So we still need to design it. All we have right now is elevation
Sure.
support plans. So that could take 9 months or whatever to get this completely designed and through permitting and all that. And then it's approximately 30 months in construction after that.
To complete the
To
entire
complete
project.
the entire project, yes.
Sounds good.
Any other questions?
Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, can I add just a few thoughts?
Sure.
So the resolution, if you choose to adopt it this evening, makes some findings, including the finding regarding the jobs, and also makes the statutorily required finding that the project, as presented, will foster economic development in the town, the creation of jobs, which you've heard a little bit about, will create additional infrastructure in the town, and is good for the health and welfare of the town. So that was Exhibit C to the declaratory resolution, which you would be approving. All of those things. Should have added one other item. There's also an amendment to your existing economic development plan that is attached as Exhibit B. It's pretty cut and dry. You're cutting out this portion of the allocation, the TIF area, specific to the COVID project, and and then you're approving that plan as part of or the development as part of the plan. That I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you. Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question?
Please.
I see that we have representatives from the hospital and Mr. Rob Matt. I don't mean to single you out, but what I am going to single you out because I just want to clarify and make sure that I understand correctly that this isn't the first project that has come to the hospital, is it?
I was gonna mention that, you know,
Robert, come
we've been in this evolution for 2.5 or 3 years, I forget.
And Mr. Matt, just so that, because believe it or not, there might be some folks that don't know who you are.
Please introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Rob Matt with Hancock Health. I used to work for the hospital for 20 years in a full-time capacity in a variety of roles. I presently am the Director of Development for the hospital, so the origination of the Wellness Center, the purchasing of that ground, the purchasing of the ground at I-70 and Mount Comfort Road fall under the things that I am now doing for the hospital. So the first person involved in this project back 3 or 4 years ago was me, with the purchase of the ground from the Corwins, I think primarily, and then we did work with Dr. Trevor Lloyd Jones and a variety of people to get all that ground, and we responded to some of the requests of the town in that venture as well. We built the wellness center. We built the wellness center in New Pal because New Pal is New Pal. New Pal, in our mind, was and continues to be an upcoming, high-end, highly regarded community. Great schools, great neighborhoods, good people, and we thought that a wellness center to the size and description of what we built was a perfect investment, and we did it. And we did it exactly the way we said we would do it. I think you should be proud of it because we sure are, and it's working well. So in the evolution of all that, we had many suitors for ground around that facility. The Bekovic group came to us with a proposal. We vetted them like we vetted all others and said, gosh, we don't know anything about you. Let's make sure they're a legitimate player in this world. And frankly, can they build the product that we have established inside our PUD? Because we created architectural standards, road standards, landscaping standards, driveway standards, lighting standards that are above and beyond what typically are county or town level ordinances for building. And the Bekovic group stood up and said, we will do all those things because we, like you, Hancock, want to be in New Pal. We think it's a town that deserves the best product we can deliver, but it's going to be expensive. We said, yeah, it's going to be expensive. And they've stayed in the game where others may not have to meet the standards. It's kind of like at I-70 Mount Comfort Road, we could have sold that ground 12 times, but we've said, no, we're going to only sell it to people that will do good for the county, good for the area, good for the development. So we are here to at least let the RDC know that we're in full support of the Bekovic group, all the work that they've done, the patience they've had, staying in the game. They could have took their money and went elsewhere, I imagine, but they stayed with us because they like it as well. So, here's my story. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members have any discussion?
Got my question.
Do you answer your answers?
Have any questions?
Well, I think one of the questions we've discussed previously, and I've discussed with people in town, is that we're talking about building residential in the TIF area in a town that people come to for their schools. And I know that Bill and I have chatted somewhat about some potential solutions for that, but, you know, we're talking about 280 units in potentially putting dozens of children into our schools and not having the property tax dollars to support that. So I don't know if there are things that, I don't know. It's one of the hangups I have in moving forward, is that how are we going to support our schools with this project?
And I've discussed, in fact, I am in frequent communication with Dr. Lantrip. You know, I left the school board a couple of years ago to join the town council, and you know, prior to that, for 11 years was on the school board. So, and I was the president of the school board when we hired Dr. Lantrip. So obviously there's a good communication, there's a good working relationship, and I have discussed with her on many occasions the 262 acre TIF district itself. The possibility of future development. This particular allocation area, we talked about student enrollments. Right now, the numbers are down. The Southern Hancock is looking for students because the state funding, it's per student. The money follows the student. Now, for years, they relied heavily on transfer students. And in the county, Southern Hancock probably had the most transfer students than any other school corporation. That might have changed recently to Mount Vernon because they're experiencing the exact same things that we are, but maybe on a little bit bigger scale as far as development. But right now, when they finish the expansion at the high school renovation project, they'll probably have about 6 or 7 rooms that are completely empty because they don't have the students.
Because they built for growth.
Well, they built for growth, but they also planned on using everything immediately and then having the classroom sizes expand.
But they can't hire teachers because they don't have the budget for it to fill those classrooms.
And they can't find the teachers.
That is true too.
I mean, so
100%. I agree.
And I don't want to speak for Dr. Lantrip because she's not here, but my takeaway from conversations with her is she would welcome as many students as she could get.
I'm not a subject matter expert on property tax at all, but does it tie to her students? I think that's on a different level.
No.
It
School-
is.
Funds come from the
School
state,
funding-
100%.
School
But-
funding is per student.
But TIF is
Not through property.
generally commercial.
Used to be.
Well,
It no longer is, it all comes from the state. The property tax funds
Yes.
construction,
Yes.
maintenance,
Operations.
up,
There's a general fund part of it.
not much in the way of operations.
Okay.
Some small amount. Yeah, operations comes from state allocation.
one thing to me on that too is, it's a $61 million project, and we're tiffing only $5 million of it, correct? So there's a huge difference there where they're still gonna collect their tax on the other piece of it.
No, they won't. That's not how TIF works.
That totally takes it away.
It is. They will be taxed on 48. Or is it
Whatever the
$48,000? I forget
improvements.
the number I looked at.
Right,
Yes.
And I'll just
Yeah.
pick out
Instead of
hypothetical.
61 million. Yes.
It costs 61 million to build.
That
And
won't
let's
be the
say,
property.
again, just picking numbers, and
Yeah.
these are hypothetical.
Yeah.
Say the buildings, the improvements assess at 40 million. And again, just picking numbers.
Yeah.
If the land right now was taxed at $1 million, it's not, but I'm trying to make the numbers easy.
I get it.
The current tax on the land of $1 million, every taxing authority, whether it's the fire department, the township, the schools, the town, everybody gets the same percentage of that 1 million with a couple built-in, call it inflation index adjustments. So maybe a couple percentages every so often, 2 or 3 years. So it's not 1 million forever. That tax on the land, because right now it's vacant land, remains unchanged. But what happens, again, you build something that's taxed at 40 million, whatever the tax on the improvements, the tax on the 40 million, without the TIF allocation area, the developer would pay that tax to the county. The county would redistribute it to everybody that it distributes funds to. With the TIF, the developer still pays the county, and the county turns right around and will distribute 75% of the tax on the 40 million improvement, 75% to the developer, and 25% to the town's redevelopment commission. And then, and now, that won't happen for about 3 or 4 years. There's, number
Just
one, it
not
has to
seeing
be
the
built
money
and
on-
assessed, and then there might be, I don't know up front if there might be a year or 2 or 3 of interest
3
only.
years of capitalized interest.
So it may not be until year 5, which I think is exactly what occurred when the wellness center was built. So we're, right now, for the first time, the redevelopment commission is now receiving funds. So that 25% of the tax on the improvements will come to the RDC, And then, we will have to decide how best to use those funds for the general good of the entire town. But the school, the library, the township, fire department, which is funded through the township, they wouldn't get the same amount that they would if the funds came through the county.
The allocation ends at 25 years.
Mhm.
And goes
Correct.
all
Correct.
The concern is that TIF, so I worked in economic development many years ago. I know I don't look that old. But I did. And, at that time, TIF was commercial. It was used, and the thought was that if you build it, they'll come, and that means they mean residential, and those are the people who are going to be in your school, and they're going to be paying property taxes on their homes that will go to support the schools where these kids are going to be. And, I'm still struggling, I guess, to grasp the fact that we're going to put TIF on a residential property and take money away from our schools. Essentially, that, and that's all I need to say.
And yeah, apartments for tax purposes, you've got 1% on residential, 3% on commercial, and apartments are in a special class, they're 2% because it's a hybrid. It is a business and it's residential. So it's also twice the tax that would be, if that land was built out as single-family dwellings, subdivision, it'd be taxed at 1%. So with this project, it'd be taxed at 2%, which is 1% less than what it would be taxed if one of the spec warehouses was built there.
We don't want that semi-traffic.
Another question. Good questions. With the regional lift station here that's being proposed, how does that tie into the town's plan for improving?
Well, and Jim can speak to it probably better than I can, but it's $1 million that the town doesn't have to pay.
Well, and I appreciate knowing that that's part of why the project, part of why they're coming to us for the $5 million is something that they weren't intending to do.
Yeah.
And that is an upgrade from that. That helps. I appreciate knowing that.
Jim, is that accurate?
It's very accurate, yeah. When we look at going west, and that's what we want to do, we want to continue to go west, so whatever's west doesn't come east, for our protection. That regional lift station being oversized gives us that ability to, service that area. So if they just sized it for their project, then it would be up to the town in the future to come up with that cost to further go west, so.
Can I ask another question that I just thought of for some weird reason? What, the town, and this is a town question, what is being done about the traffic coming out of, what are the plans for the traffic coming out of the wellness center if we build 280 more households out of that intersection? Or has that been thought of yet?
Well, there is when they built the wellness center, we did get
Yeah.
a consultant, said, I would imagine that the apartments will probably have to look at the traffic study as well, so.
I've almost hit people multiple times pulling out of there.
Yeah.
It's not good.
All right, any other questions? All right, do we have a motion to pass resolution 7022A for the, pardon? Do I have the wrong one? Can you repeat?
Because the date changed.
It's 08/03/22.
Oh,
Hey.
two. All right, thank you. All right, so do I have a motion to pass resolution 0322 on the resolution of the New Palestine Redevelopment Commission for a declaration resolution for the New Palestine Economic Development Area?
I'll make the motion.
Second. All right, all in favor state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed state nay.
Steve, just.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, we need to have this as a roll call vote?
Well, and also just to clarify, you second the motion?
No, I did not second.
Oh, you didn't second the motion? Mark made the motion.
That's right.
I'll second the motion. Because you have to have a motion and a second before you can,
Yes.
which,
Do we need a roll call vote for this? All right, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Billy Meyer,
aye.
Mark Rooney,
Aye.
Rainey,
Yes.
Strong,
Aye.
Aye.
Smathers.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Any other business that we need to discuss?
Yes, I just want to put this on the radar screen because I think in the long run, whether it's the town council or the redevelopment commission, I think it would be beneficial for us to create a criteria so that when people want to do a development within the 262 acre TIF district, which, you know, years ago when it was, that TIF district wasn't created just at the wellness center. You know, it goes from there all the way to CVS on both sides of 52. So there was some forward thinking of a much wider area to promote development. I think that we need a criteria so that when a developer comes and says, hey, I'm doing something inside your TIF district, I want to make it an allocation area and do a TIF bond, that, you know, me thinking out loud, there needs to be a dollar amount. And Brian, let me put you on the spot.
Well, can we back up a second
Yeah.
before you say that? Because when it was explained to us years
Mhm.
ago that the only place that you could build something to do a TIF was where the wellness center is, but that we could spend the money from CVS to the wellness center.
No, you could activate another allocation area anywhere within the 262
But we would have to
acres.
actually allocate a new area
Oh,
to do
absolutely.
that,
That
not
can't
just
happen.
have a area within the, because we had said that. Okay, well, I mean, that's,
You know, and my understanding is you have a TIF district that is 262 acres. In order for a developer to take advantage of bond financing, they'd have to come in just like the apartment complex is now and ask to be converted to an allocation area. So it's not a process that can happen without a lot of input. But what I'm suggesting is, and Brian, where I'd like to put you on the
Sure.
hot seat is, from a cost of issuance, you know, is it a $5 million project? Is it 10 million? Is it 20 million? At what point is it too low to really make sense to even do a TIF? Because the cost exceed the benefit.
Well, it depends on your capitalized interest, which can eat up, depending on how long the project is probably the largest of all issuance costs.
And I'm just
For
a
years of
general
interest. Sure.
ballpark, just shot in the dark.
Now, we've done them for communities as, under 2 million, 1.7. In the city of Lawrence, we just recently did an economic development TIF bond for $1.7 million, and that made the difference for the developer. And all the costs to the town are supported out of the bond, which in most cases is purchased by the developer themselves, so they carry the financial risk as well.
but we
I'm-
also need to remember what a TIF is for. A TIF is to spur development. It is not designed to be where there's a CVS already there and we want to put something in the strip mall next to it. It is designed to what's the word I'm looking for? It won't come to me. Thank you. But there's a different word. Yeah, there's a different word that you.
And so, Rachel,
When
I
you
want
have
it to
a-
be a substantial amount,
Right.
meaning whether it's 10 million, 20 million, you know,
But it has to make a difference.
the
isn't it?
people building the Taco Bell, if that's
Yeah.
$1.4 million, in my opinion, that's not a TIF project.
No.
But if somebody's bringing a $25 million, then at
We
least
had
it
a
should be
large
considered.
piece of land on a great corner,
Mhm.
and the Hancock Hospital wanted to build an asset that our community needed there. That's what spurred this initial conversation, in my opinion. And for those of us who were here at the time, if you disagree with me, stand up. Or it help me.
Yeah.
But it's redeveloping an area, or in the case that we have, taking an area that has great potential and setting a way to develop it so that we can get other commercial properties in here, putting the infrastructure in place, building a lift station, putting roads in place. It's not just to develop, any old piece of property in town. It has to be long-term you know, improving our community and using
Mm-hmm.
it, using the money in a way to spur future development.
Sure, and so that's what I'm suggesting, whether it's a dollar amount, the number of jobs, both. Again, so that a developer, if there were a criteria,
But I don't think that you can lay blanket criteria that well either, because if you have a piece of property that, you know,
needs the
and
help.
the right piece of property and the right project, it's a great tool to have. If you don't, it's not.
Okay,
And
that's,
one item of clarification. And
Sure.
and I'm really, I wasn't here for the 2019 expansion
Sure.
or the original adoption. But what I've been able to conclude.
Thank you.
Is the economic development area that was declared as 262 acres, outlined in green. Originally, when it was adopted in 2017 or 18, this black hatched area right there was the allocation area. That's where you're capturing TIF. So you weren't capturing TIF out here. That was expanded to the 2 yellow designated areas in 2019. So that area right here is the only area that you're capturing tax increment. You can spend it throughout the economic development area as long as it is serving the economic development area.
We can spend anything we catch in the gray and yellow area inside the green boundary.
Correct.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
and not outside the green area?
Nope,
Well,
not,
there's some debate about that. If it's serving the economic development area, there's a separate section of the code that certain legislators who wanted to cut all this out didn't find when they changed it. So section 25 of 36.7.14.25 allows money to be spent outside of the economic development area or redevelopment area, depending on what you declared, if it serves the area. So if you have a road or some other facility.
What about a school bus? If and this is completely hypothetical, if the redevelopment commission had the funds,
the school is not in that area, but.
well, it's not in
Because
the
it
green area,
serves.
but that, could we buy the school a bus?
I'm not gonna say yes to that yet.
Okay,
I-
yeah, I know
You
that's,
could build them a facility.
okay.
In the green
Even if
area
it-
or
even
outside
if
of
it's
the green
not
area?
inside
If
the
it
green
serves the
area.
green area, if it serves the economic development area.
Even if
you
it's
can
not
argue that.
in the green area. Okay.
Arguably correct. I want to look a little bit more
Okay.
closely at that before. I move on to
We
the
weren't trying to put you on the spot, but again, just knowing,
We're trying to come up with creative ways we
Sure.
can also help our schools if we allow this project to go forward. So-
There's one other, again, I'm just trying to give you ideas as you're talking about this. When that 25% comes back to the redevelopment commission, you can always choose to pass it through to the underlying
Taxing district.
taxing
Yep.
districts. Not advocating it, I'm just telling you that that is an option for the redevelopment commission.
and is that all or nothing? Or is
No.
it, we could say
Not all
this
or nothing.
amount?
It would have to go, pro rata to everyone that's underlying, but you could say X, we're gonna pass you X.
Okay.
But then the school would only get a small percent.
But could
We'll
we
get
only do
percent
it for
of
1
that.
year? Could we do it, or
You
a
can-
period of
you
any
can
time
do
we
it
want?
Anytime,
And rescind it at any time we wanted?
do it anytime.
Okay.
Okay.
And some areas, that's tradition. Brownsburg,
Another area that really touts their schools.
But that's not directly to the school, it's back to all the tax.
all taxing districts.
Yeah,
But there
same-
also
same
have
rate.
been projects constructed specifically for the school, for a school, out of redevelopment funds. Buying a bus, I don't think you can do. I don't think that's in your
The statute.
authorities, but building a facility definitely is.
So we could build them a
Workforce
bus
development
station.
programs.
I know you can do that because I've looked at that. I have to look twice. about
It's a
buying
I can't buy them a bus, but we can build them a garage.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look twice before I say yes or no
No.
on that one.
We're not
Thank
doing
you.
anything quickly, so,
Build the station,
Yeah.
build the garage, and they'll come.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right.
Motion to adjourn?
Do we have a motion to adjourn the new Palestine? I'm sorry?
Are you taking public comments?
Not this week.
It's just,
Not this week.
It's up to you. It's not scheduled for a public hearing. Of course, as Mr. Bosma said, they'll come back for confirmatory hearing, and they'll do a public hearing at that time, but it's at your discretion.
yes, please. Please come up, state your name.
Bill Wagner. I live at 4462 South 600 West. I also have another house in town that family lives in, so I am a taxpayer within the town. I just don't reside within the town. I had a couple of questions, and I email, but they didn't respond. So this process here they voted in at the last town council meeting is costing us $70,000. So the payment for that $70,000 is part of the TIF. So our TIF is really $5 million plus $70,000 to pay the lawyer fees.
It's within the 5 million. It's actually paid by the developer.
Okay, so within the 5?
Within the 5.
Okay.
All costs.
So at the end, the question that was not answered and was asked at the town council meeting was, if somehow this all falls through and it doesn't happen, who pays, or does anybody pay that $70,000 if that whole thing doesn't move forward? So that's still out there. Hopefully at the town council meeting tonight, we may get an answer to that.
Is it okay if I address that? So
Be
the state's
wonderful.
answered. The 70,000 includes a bond opinion, everything that surrounds all of this. So if the transaction were to terminate tonight, we've recorded our hours, and the town will only be billed for our hours, which would be, I don't know what it is at the moment, a lot more than I thought it would be at this point, but it would be $70,000, just a portion of that.
Okay, and then the other thing I had was on the gateway, on the Indiana Gateway. This is the current TIF district, which includes the 2 lots, which you all just voted the TIF on, or whatever the document is that you're,
The resolution?
So what I numbered is lot 3 and 4. These are already part of that, the hospital's TIF on the wellness center. So is the plan to pull that out of there and have less funding on that one, and then use that for the apartment?
Well, if there's, the tax that is captured is only on improvements. So if land is taken out, there's no difference. It doesn't affect anything. But it's my understanding that what is happening is a new allocation area is being created. And whether it has overlapping land or not, what's important is where the improvements are. And they will be within a newly created allocation area, if that answers your question.
Right, that's correct. It's part of the current allocation area. It's being reestablished and captured specifically for this project rather than for the hospital project.
Can you clarify, is that because of the timeline? It's on a different time. Is that why we do it?
No, actually, you're
Okay.
doing it so you capture it specific for this project.
Okay.
Rather than going into the hospital. There's also a hospital fund,
Okay.
tax increment fund. You don't, well, the hospital might love to have it go there, but it would go for that project. You're allocating it for specific for this project. It's the same, because you correctly identified that it's in the current allocation area, it's no difference. It's just where it gets captured for, what it gets captured for.
And that'll be part of your $70,000 fee, so you shift those around.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And it should be honestly about a $95,000 fee, but my partner Ted said we were going to limit it to 70 for the town.
We like Ted.
Me too.
All right. Any other comments? All right, do I have a second to,
Did we get a motion?
or, excuse me, thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn the redevelopment?
I motion to
Commission.
adjourn.
Do I have a second? All right, all in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed state nay. All right, it passes. Thank you, everyone.